Hey guys, new day, new episode of El Jefe's Chop Shop. I'm Jeff, and behind me is the shed at my mum's house. So today we're going to be working on the crown. I haven't touched it in a few months since I bought my house. Just a bit overrun with other stuff, so it's time to work out where I'm at and get stuck into it. Alright, so things I need to do. Obviously I need to put the engine back in, and it's really tempting to jump into that, but I know there's a few things I need to fix first. So the nuts that hold the bolts for the top A-arms, they're in there, they're captive and they've been stripped, so I need to pull those off, re-weld new ones in. I think it's only this side, but I may as well do all of them while I'm at it. But the welder's at the other house, so I can't do that today. I need to remove that wiring loom because we were getting a new one, so I'll poke that through into the cab. I'm sure there's a lot more to do, but that's all I can see at the moment. So as you can see, it's pretty bare. I haven't got started building new inner guards, but I haven't finished those. New brake lines that aren't installed, new brakes that aren't installed, bunch of ducting that's not installed. I just pulled the intercooler and the top mount out. So that's the original, the first 1J that I put in this car. That's the original trans. And over there is the new engine, which I'll show in a minute. So as you can see, this thing is pretty much completely stripped at the moment. All the dash is still in, all the carpet, all the underlay, all removed. So I can run air lines, power lines, all that stuff over there. New speaker lines for new speakers here and in the back. I need to fix some rust here. There's a bunch to do. So the main goal at the moment is to get it rolling so I can move it to the other house. And then I can focus on more of the fun stuff when I get to there. So rolling wise, I need to do the A-arms. And I know that the bushes don't fit because you can't get crown bushes anymore. So I had to get some off of a Cortina, I believe it was. So to make those fit. And then I can put the airbags in, put the front end together. And that's about it. So I might start with that today. So that I can take it home and grab the welder and stuff, come back, weld these tomorrow or the next day. And then we'll go from there. So the new engine for the crown is not that one, it is this one. So this is a 2J bottom end, non-VVTi 1J head, so it's a 1.5J, as you can see. So I've got upgraded injectors, cams, and this has all been rebuilt. It's a GTE bottom end, so the turbo pistons and all that sort of stuff. Got a new harmonic balancer because they always like to poo themselves. New water pump, new oil pump. Coil pack conversion to Yaris coils, which I'll probably swap over to the R35 ones. Got a sandwich block, E85 sensor for later so I can do flex fuel. Custom sump, which was done originally when the workshop did the conversion for me the first time. Swapped to electric throttle body so that I can get rid of the cruise control module and add traction control if I want to. We've got these breathers for a catch can, which is somewhere else in the shed. Come over this side, there's not a lot going on, but I've got some rebuilt CT12As. They've been high flowed and should flow 400 kilowatts. We'll see. So I got a billet fuel rail from, I think it was BP, I'm not sure. Custom fuel rail, Garage 7 hooked me up with a lot of this stuff. Radium fuel pressure sensor, fuel pressure regulator, sorry. And then I've got a fuel pulse dampener somewhere as well, but that's not fitted at the moment. So Garage 7 and Milton Engines rebuilt this for me. One of the guys that works there was doing some house renos, and I ended up buying the block off of him so he could finish his renos, and gave him the block that I was going to get rebuilt. So this head is the original one off of a spare engine that I had, and they built that. The plan was to get that built with cams, put it onto my old 1J block. They took the old head off, went to put the new head on, and all the 1J bores of that block there are all scored. So they were like, well, this is kind of garbage, so you should probably fix it. So I ended up buying a 2J block off of one of the guys that works at Garage 7. They put this together for me, new timing belt, new everything. So this is pretty much brand new from top to bottom. So it should be a good time, but we'll see. So that's going to go in a future episode, but I just thought I'd give you a look over it now. So this is today's conundrum. This is a bottom arm for the driver's side, the right hand side, which I've put on this really thick plate, welded that on. The airbag sits on here, which I've got just here. So the airbag sits on there like that. I'm going to have to do some clearancing for the caster arm because I didn't think of that when I was building it, because I'm really good at planning ahead. New ball joint, flip this over, that's only finger tight at the moment. I've made this cup here to re-strengthen everything, so this is the original spring perch and it would have gone flat across there, or reasonably flat across there. So I've cut all that out, put that plate on the back, and then there's a piece of tube in here that I've put through, welded in here and welded on the top here, as you can see. So it should be nice and strong. So the main issue with this, it's reasonably ready to go, enough to roll the car around anyway. This bush here, I would like to replace it. Pretty simple looking thing. It's just a press-in bush. So this is the original setup here. So you just got an inner sleeve and your press-in sleeve. So I'm assuming that would have come as one piece if you bought the correct bushes, but we can't get them. So I had to buy these, which are off of a Cortina, I believe. So as you can see, it's reasonably close to what I need. It's a little bit long, which is not the worst thing in the world. And then if I compare it to the rubber section, it's, you know, even this end out, it's probably about 10 mil too long. So I can cut that down, that's fine. But this is a smidgen bigger diameter, so it doesn't actually fit in here as nicely as it should. So that would go if I pressed it, but I don't want to do that just yet. So I'm going to have to open this up a little bit so that I can go in, and then cut it shorter when I go to put it in the car. And then the second option, the second issue for today, is this top arm of the crown, and I've got new bushes for these ones here. These were all replaced 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but that doesn't look like a 3-year-old bush to me, so we'll see. So I'm just going to push that out, get this pin here out, replace those two, clean this up, put it back in. But this is the bolts that I said the nuts had stripped for, so I can't put those on until I bring the welder up, but that's easy enough. So let's get started on that. So as you can see, with a bit of back and forth on the press, we've got this shaft out, and one of the bushes came with it. The other bush is still in the press, but now I've got a bit better access, so I can pull them off, and then I'll replace them with the new ones. So as you can see, with a bit of persistence, the old bushes are out. They tried to separate from the metal sleeve. It's okay. This is the shaft that runs through the middle, like that, with a bush on either end. So now I have the new bushes that I need to press in. So these are the same as this. Now I need to press these into that, but I'll give that a quick clean just around the hole so there's no dirt or grime. These are brand new, so they're nice and clean. Press it all back together. So I just gave that a quick clean with Carby Clean. That's what I've got laying around. So the few things to remember with this is sometimes these holes are offset to one side or up and down. So just make note of how they are when you pull them out, or before you pull them out. These ones are identical side to side, so that doesn't matter so much. But with my Stout, for example, they were slightly tapered to lean the arm one way or the other, so you have to make sure you know which way they're going in. And the second thing to remember is when you put these bushes in, put one in, then slide this in, and then put the other one in. So you put both of the bushes in, you'll never get this in without taking the bush out again. And sounds simple, but it's really frustrating. I've done it before. So just make sure you put one in, make sure this is in the correct way, push the other one in. So this was supposed to be the easier of the two arms. The bushes were correct. This pin came out of this arm. These bolts came out of this arm. So I've pressed it all in and put all the bolts in. And I realised there's a gap here and a gap here, but they're bottomed out onto the pin. So I'm not sure why this has got such a gap. I feel like they should be flush against and it should be bottomed out on this pin. So I'm going to give this a break for a minute, work on the other arm, and I'll come back to this one. So next up is to get this bush into here. So one of these holes is slightly bigger and this one's slightly smaller. You can see on here there's a small step. So both of these holes are about 1 millimeter too small for this bush. So I'm just going to take a little tiny bit off, clear the paint out with the die grinder, and then see how it goes, see how close it is. If not, go a little bit more and then press this in, and then once it's in, I'll cut it to length. So with a bit of die grinding, that pressed in like it was supposed to be. So now I just have to cut it to length and fit it to the car. So I've got the old bush and the new bush. So this one measures at 75 millimeters from this furthest most steel part to this furthest most steel part. So then I have to cut this one to be 75 mil. And then these calipers are set at 75 mil. So you can see that I have to take a little bit of rubber off either side. So I just remembered that the angle grinder is at the other house, so I have to take these home with me and bring them back tomorrow. So next thing to look at is the rubber bush. So I've got the original here. You can see how much it sticks out compared to the new one. This would have also had a metal sleeve on it, like this one does. So if you can see, it actually sits out a little bit further than this one, which would change caster. Caster. So I'm going to take the rubber section that I need off of this end, because otherwise it's going to sit too far one way or the other and it will change the caster too much. So as you can see, that metal on the old bush lines up with the metal on the new bush. So I'll just take this off and put it back in the car when I've got the other section done. So here is the bush after I've cut it off. This is how much I cut off, and here's this tiny little Stanley knife. So now if I grab the calipers, you can see that this is under that 75 mil by just a fraction, so that'll be fine. So now that I know what I'm doing, I'll cut this bush before I push it into the arm, make it a little bit easier for myself. So it's easy as that. I'll die grind out the other arm and push this in. So I just finished pressing these two bushes into the arms, so they're all good to go. Need to cut these sleeves down, which I will do in a minute, if I can get the die grinder attachment working. So back onto this arm. My dad just stopped past and was asking me what I was doing, seeing how we were going. So I went and showed him on the car, because there's an original arm there that I haven't taken off. So he was asking why this wasn't fitting. So if I go over there and show you what is wrong, or what this one looks like, this one with the original bushes actually has a gap as well on both sides. It's not quite as big as the gap I've got, but that could come down to left and right, or it could come down to the bushes I've got. But I also realised that I left these washers off, so I'm going to put the washers back onto my new one and bolt it all back up, and it should be reasonably similar to this side. So I've thrown the washers back on, so I'll just give this a quick clean up, and then it needs some paint. So I've just given this arm a quick clean with degreaser, a small brush and a rag. Come up alright. Looks okay. So I just test fitted this ball joint to make sure it all fits. That's the new one. That all fits fine. So now I'll move on to the other side. So this is the other side. The original one's still in the car, but if I'd used my brain before I put the first one together, I would have got this other. So I've got a right hand side over there, which is I've already done. I've got a left hand side here. They've both been acid dipped and etch primed, so this one's actually in better condition than the one I just redid. So I'll clean this off, press the bushes in, put it up there with the rest of them, and then they're ready for paint. So it's all cleaned up, and just when you thought you were in front by using one that you've already prepared, I can't find the pin because I'm super unorganised and the shed looks like a mess. So I'm going to have to pull the other side apart off of the car to get that pin out. So sticking with the driver's side, this is the next part. This is the spindle and the hub assembly. So it's very similar to a lot of Toyotas. So it's got a steering arm, then the spindle section, and then the hub. So originally this set up the brakes bolted to the back, but when I got this car engineered, I swapped to a Skyline and Falcon combo. So the rotor goes on from the front, and then the Skyline caliper bolts on to the regular mounts, which are connected to the spindle. So I'm just going to clean this up and then put it together. So here is the right hand side about halfway put together. So So I've got the new bush, the new ball joint, the airbag's bolted on, just temporary. I'm going to have to pull all this apart again anyway to fit the caster arms. We'll make and fit the caster arms. So the airbag's held in with 3 bolts down the bottom and 2 up the top. And the valve, well, the fitting's just here. So that's going to run up through this hole, the air line, sorry, will run up through this hole. This one here and the one on the other side that you can see are for access to these Allen keys. These welds are kind of horrible. This one's kind of horrible. So this thread will go up through where the shock used to mount. Bolt goes on the top of it, or a nut goes on the top of it, holds it all together. It's just mainly to hold this cup into where the spring would sit so that it all spaces out correctly. So now I'm going to put the spindle on with the hub, and I might try and put that top A-arm on as well, and I'll show you that when I'm done. So that's the whole front right hand side together. I've decided not to paint this just yet because I'm going to have to pull it all apart anyway, and this bottom arm probably needs another coat of paint, so I'll just leave that for now. Put it all together, did everything reasonably tight. It's not final assembly, so it's not too much of a worry. I haven't put the split pins in because I'm going to pull it apart anyway. So you can see how it all sort of goes together now. So that's fully deflated. And that is only 70 psi, so it goes up to about 150. Before I can assemble the left hand side all new, I need to pull apart the old stuff. So it's a good chance to show you the brake upgrade. So this is an R33 GTST caliper, and this is a BA Falcon rotor, and then there's a small hub centering ring in there, and that's all we need. It just bolts straight up. So I've just taken the brake conversion off, and here is that hub centric ring that I was talking about. So this one's made of stainless steel, and it's only a couple of mil thick. I think it cost me $10 or $15 a side to get these machined up. And then the ones on the stout I actually did myself at an alley, and they seem to be fine as well. So next, this is unbolted. So next is that bolt back there, and then this should all come off. So just that lower control arm bolt and the tie rod. This is all out now. So now just going to undo this ball joint and the top ball joint. Put this aside, clean it up, and then put this aside. Don't need that anymore. And pull that pin out of the top half and put it all into the new stuff. So I've got those 3 sections apart, and there's still the bolts that hold the ball joint in from both of these arms, that main pin and the 2 washers on either end and the 2 bolts on either end. And then I want to clean that up, which is the spindle, clean that up, put that pin and the 2 washers and the bolts into the new arm, and fit the new arm with the bag plate on it. So I'll do all of that, and then I'll update you when it's back looking like the other side. So that's as far as I'm going to get for tonight. Got the bottom arm assembled with the new ball joint, the airbag, the spacer, and the airline. Got the top arm installed with the ball joint and the pin with the new bushes, which was an absolute nightmare. For some reason I had to cut the old bushes out of the other arm to get the pin out, and then trying to get it all back together was just as hard. The other side was difficult, but was a dream compared to this side. So tomorrow I'm going to clean up the spindle, put those 3 bits together, and then it will look like the other side. And then I need to clean up the cross member and weld those nuts back on to the top towers. There's 2 there and 2 there. Clean up underneath, paint what I can, put it all together. So see how much I get done tomorrow.